Movies are cool and fun. Hi, this is Nate Jones, and you're listening to Nate's Notes. And we're doing kind of a special episode here, and we are talking movie reviews. We usually don't do this on the normal show. We'll talk about movies, TVs, and sports and other things on the normal show. But this one is all movie review, and this will change kind of depending on the movie. This won't be a weekly thing or even a monthly thing. It'll be kind of, if we see a movie we really like, we'll talk about it. And sometimes it might just be me, sometimes it might just be Griffin, sometimes it might be a combination of both, and sometimes either of us might have a special guest to talk about this movie. And that is the case today. So I'm Nate, just in case you didn't know that, and these are my notes. Anyways, so we're talking movie reviews here, and I have a special guest with me today, and that is Kelsey Clark. Kelsey is my girlfriend. How are you doing today, Kelsey?
I'm doing great, Nate. How are you doing?
I am doing really well. I'm really excited to talk about the movie that we just saw recently, and we're going to talk all about it. Now, can you let the listeners know what movie did we just watch?
The Lion King.
Yeah, so we saw The Lion King. Now, we just didn't rewatch the 1994 original. We went to the theater, saw the 2019 remake. There's kind of a dispute between live action. It really is animated. How would you categorize it? Would you say live action, or would you call it animated, or just remake?
I mean, when it comes to animals, I think this is the closest you can get to live action because it's not like you can go and make lions talk to you. So I would consider this live action just because this is the best they're going to get.
Okay, yeah. Some are just calling it photorealistic animation, which is kind of what it is. Jon Favreau recently but he told everyone on Twitter that there's one real shot in it and the rest is anime, which is pretty incredible because if he didn't tell you which shot it was, I don't think you could have really picked out which one was animated and which ones were a real shot that they filmed in Africa. But when talking about these live action, not live action remakes or whatever, there have been 13 of them so far, and some of them are a little earlier than you expected. So they've been doing these live action remakes of these classic animated movies since 1994, and this might surprise some people because there's a repeat in this list. So they've done 13 so far. Now, how many of these live action remakes have you seen, Kelsey?
I've seen 11 of them just because I am a really big fan of Disney in general.
I've only seen 8, which kind of surprised me. I thought I might have gone 13 for 13 here. I did not. So I'll run through them quickly. And the first one is The Jungle Book, 1994. So if those of you who are aware of these live action remakes, you'll know this is later in the list as well. So 1994, and then 2 years later, 101 Dalmatians, a remake of the original animated film that was made in 1961. And then 4 years later, 102 Dalmatians. Now there's 10 years between 102 Dalmatians and the next live action, and that was Alice in Wonderland. March 5th, 2010 is when that was a released remake of the animated 1951 Alice in Wonderland. And then we took a cool 4-year break from Disney live action remakes or adaptations, because this one isn't directly a remake. It's more of an adaptation of a villain of a classic Disney film, that's Sleeping Beauty in 1959. In 2014, they released Maleficent, which Angelina Jolie stars in. And then a year later, and this is when the ball really starts rolling with the live action remakes. So this is Cinderella in 2015, and that kind of really started the ball rolling. What did you think of the live action Cinderella?
I honestly didn't really like it, but I'm not a huge Cinderella fan to begin with.
Yeah.
So it could have been a really good live action. I just didn't care for the characters to begin with.
That's a really good point. I think they took like an interesting spot with the live action remakes, like which ones they chose. They chose popular ones, but not always the most popular. And we'll kind of talk at the end, in a couple months, they released probably the most 2 popular animated franchises remakes back to back. So that was kind of interesting, instead of spacing them out over these couple of years. In 2016, we had The Jungle Book, which came out April 15th, 2016. That was directed by Jon Favreau, who also directed this Lion King adaptation. And this is also with photorealistic animals. There is a human actor in this. Mowgli is played by a young man. but the rest is all photorealistic animals, similar to what we'll be talking about in this Lion King remake. And then they made a sequel to Alice in Wonderland with Alice Through the Looking Glass, which was May 27th, 2016. That one kind of bombed at the box office, but people seem to enjoy it. Were you one of those people that enjoyed Through the Looking Glass?
I did, actually. I didn't see it in theaters, but I saw it after the fact. I believe it was on Netflix for a while. And I went back and I thought, hey, it's a movie. I'm bored, whatever. And I watched it, and I was surprisingly into it. And I watched it multiple times, actually.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, I watched the first one, never got around to this one. I think, it came 6 years later, and so I was kind of like, I would have liked this right after the fact, because I really loved the Alice in Wonderland remake. And I was like, if you had given this to me like 2-3 years after, I probably would have seen it in theaters, probably loved it. But then 6 years later, I was like, I don't really want to put the effort at this point.
Nate, it has such a good twist.
All right, I'll have to check it out for sure. That's a pretty good ringing endorsement there. So after that, a year later, and you'll kind of notice these are years spaced out right now, and this will be big when we get to a couple movies later on. A year later, Beauty and the Beast came out March 17th, 2017. Did really well in the box office. I believe it's the first live-action remake to go over $1 billion. I could be wrong on that. Alice in Wonderland might have been the first one, but Beauty and the Beast did really well at the box office. And that's when they started really going into their, what the experts call the Renaissance era of Disney. So Disney has been really famous since 1930s with Snow White, but they had a rut. Right after Walt Disney passed away in the early 1960s, Disney was really in a rut with their animated films and their live action films. They weren't doing as well. They weren't these record breakers. They weren't setting standards for the industry like they were before until these late 80s, early 90s films. Beauty and the Beast is one of them, 1991. And this is kind of the perfect time. All of those kids that were kids in 1991 and later are, in their 20s, 30s, and have a lot more money. So that's why they've done really well in the box office. Now this next one might be my favorite live action they've done so far. I really loved it. I was a big fan of Winnie the Pooh when I was younger, and to me the nostalgia hit big time, and it was really emotional and a lot better than I thought. That's Christopher Robin, which was released in August of 2018, and it's based on the Winnie the Pooh franchise. It's kind of a retelling. It's with an older Christopher Robin. I loved it. What did you think of Christopher Robin?
It was okay. I would categorize it as good. I didn't dislike it. I didn't necessarily... It wasn't one of favorites. When you're done going through this list, I'll tell you my 3 favorites, just because, to be clear. So I liked Christopher Robin. I would see it again. Wasn't one of my favorites. That's
a really good point. And this next one is another one I don't think either of us saw. It was Dumbo, March 29th, 2019. And this started 3. So there are 3 live-action Disney remakes that were released this year. And I actually believe, there will be a total of 5 released by the end of 2019. So pretty incredible. Disney's just really rolling out with these remakes and adaptations.
Gotta get those dollar bills, y'all.
Really, Disney is not short on cash at the moment between any of their franchises that they own. Dumbo did okay in the box office. They kind of reimagined Dumbo in a way, because Dumbo was... When it came out in 1941, people loved it for the animation, but it is definitely a movie of its time. A lot of racial symbolism and other things that were not great, and they're actually editing out of the film now. And so Dumbo is loved by some, hated by most, I would say.
I never bothered to see the original Dumbo either, even as a kid, and I was never told to go back and watch it, so it just never happened.
Right, I think the only reason I watched it, because I watched it in a class about Walt Disney. I watched the full length of it.
What a surprise, guys. He took a class on Disney.
So, it's not even like, it doesn't feel like a feature-length film either. It's an hour long. It's definitely of its time. It has good moments. It has great music in it. And I think that's why they maybe remade it. And they try to do it with a great director in Tim Burton to kind of give it a different edge maybe, but it didn't do super well. It did okay at the box office, but comparatively between these 2 films we're going to be talking about next, not as well. So the next one was Aladdin, which was May 2019. And this one kind of caught me by surprise. I thought it would be good because the original story is good. So unless they somehow butcher the story, I didn't think it would be bad. Right. But it was incredible. It did things I didn't expect. It had all the colors, vibrancy that I loved from the original, and it just did it in a whole new light. And the changes they made were perfect. I loved how it looked. I loved how it sounded. Everyone they casted, I think, was almost perfectly cast.
Yeah.
It was really incredible. What were your thoughts about this Aladdin remake?
I really loved the twists they added in it. I was surprised at how much I loved Aladdin. I liked Aladdin as a kid, but it wasn't one of my favorites. And right now, it is one of my favorites. Definitely the remake completely changed my mind. I loved Will Smith in it. Oh my gosh, it made me want to go home and marry Will Smith.
Yeah, I think he did a great job of not copying Robin Williams, but more respecting him and just giving it its own twist. I loved it. And now, the one we're here to talk about, we won't go too in deep right now, but The Lion King was released just last week, July 19th, 2019, directed by Jon Favreau, and Hans Zimmer and Elton John once again came back for the score and the songs, so pretty incredible there. Now, I did mention two more films were going to be released in 2019. Maleficent did really well back in the box office in 2014. 5 years later, gets a sequel, Maleficent, Mistress of Evil. I'm really interested to see where they take this one. I didn't see the original. This trailer for this one kind of made me want to see it. It looks pretty incredible, and what it seems like Disney might start doing is making sequels to these live-action ones that are different from the animated live-action. Because of those of you who don't know, late 90s, early 2000s, Disney loved their straight-to-DVD sequels. That's why there are sequels to Aladdin, Lion King, and others. They're probably going to differentiate from those because not a lot of people saw them. They did pretty well for DVD sales, but they weren't the most successful. Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, I think that's them going in a different direction from the original Sleeping Beauty story. And then coming to the Disney Plus service is a live-action, in quotation marks again, Lady and the Tramp. Now, I had no idea they were doing this until I looked this up, but it's going to go straight to their streaming service. What do you think about the Lady and the Tramp live-action, animated, whatever?
You don't think they could get a real lady? I'm just kidding. I know it's dogs. I am not sure how to feel about it. I was kind of a fan of The Lady and the Tramp, the original. So I'm a little worried about what they're going to do with it moving forward. Is there going to be a twist? How are they going to twist it? It's really about two dogs in love. Will I still like it as an adult? Because that seems real weird now.
Yeah, I definitely see that. I think it's interesting that they're sending it straight to their streaming service instead of releasing in theaters. Is it bad? Or maybe it's something to get people to subscribe. Like maybe it's that good that people will pay that $6 to add another subscription service just for this movie.
Yeah, I honestly think that the original may not have done as well as some of their other originals. So it seems like they're doing remakes, releasing in the theaters, getting those numbers up with the ones that they know were popular. For instance, The Lion King. But I think Lady and the Tramp maybe didn't do so well. So it did well enough that they want to redo it, but it didn't do well enough that they want to pay theaters to have it in there.
All right, so we did promise that we're going to talk about our favorites of these live-action remakes. We're going to do 3 each. We're going to do them real quick. And so I'm going to go through mine real quick, and then we'll go to Kelsey. I think my top 3 are probably Aladdin, Christopher Robin, and The Jungle Book. And yeah, all of them, I think, for me, brought something new and exciting to original properties that I already loved. What are your top 3?
My top 1 is The Jungle Book. Okay. Then I would go Aladdin, and then Alice Through the Looking Glass.
Okay, that's pretty surprising. I don't think a lot of people have Alice Through the Looking Glass in their top 3, or there's only 13, so it's not a huge list, but...
Listen, it was a really good movie, and whoever those 13 are, they can fight me.
Well, now we're going to talk about The Lion King. This is the moment you've all been waiting for. You've listened to almost 15 minutes of content just to hear our thoughts on The Lion King. But we're not going to get straight to them. We're going to tell you a little bit about the original, and then we'll go straight in to the remake or the readaptation of The Lion King. So Lion King was released in 1994. It was produced by the Walt Disney Feature Animation Company. It is the 32nd Disney animated feature film and 5th animated film during a period known as the Disney Renaissance, as we mentioned earlier. The Lion King was directed by Roger Ehlers and Rob Minkoff, and it featured original music from Elton John and his lyricist Tim Rice with a score from Hans Zimmer. It was critically loved when it came out. This is why we call it the Disney Renaissance. It was really a power hour of animation for Disney at the time, and this movie ended up being the highest grossing film ever. Not ever, but ever in 1994. So if we're only looking at 1994, it made $766 million during its run in theaters. It has been re-released since, so that total's a little higher at this moment in time. It did really well in VHS as well. It is the highest grossing traditionally animated film of all time, and it is also the best-selling film on home video, having sold over 30 million VHS tapes. That's incredible, considering VHS tapes are no longer being produced. So this was all money made a long time ago and sales made a long time ago. So pretty incredible. It also was nominated for 2 Oscars in musical categories, and it won the Best Musical or Comedy at the 1995 Golden Globes. So that's a little bit about The Lion King. I'm guessing most people know the story, so we won't dive too much into story details. It's basically Hamlet. If you read Hamlet and you haven't seen Lion King, there's Lion King for you. And if you don't know what Hamlet is, you can look that up, or just look up the synopsis online for The Lion King, or just watch it. It's a pretty good movie.
Or you could read a book.
Yeah, you could read a book. Books are kind of boring. All right, so we're going to jump straight into it, and we'll wait till the end to give our full, we'll do out of 10. Actually, we'll do something unique. We'll do out of 7 for Nate's notes. We won't do out of 10s. We'll do out of 7. That's how we'll give our scores. To be unique, everyone does out of 10 or out of 5. We're going to do out of 7 because we're unique and fun. All right, to give you a little bit of rundown, as we mentioned, it is the 13th remake or live action adaptation of a classic Disney animated film directed by Jon Favreau. It stars Donald Glover, Seth Rogen, Chiwetel Ejiofor, Billy Eichner, John Candy, John Oliver, and Beyonce. And James Earl Jones is the only returning character reprising his role as Mufasa. So, original thoughts. So, we'll just kind of go, what were your first reactions coming out of the movie theater? So, we're walking out of the theater, throwing our trash away. What were your initial thoughts of this movie?
My initial thoughts were they didn't mess it up as much as I thought they were going to, because I was really nervous. I loved the original. There were so many mixed reviews that I was like, I'm going to hate this. And you know what? I thought it was pretty dang good.
I'm kind of in line there. I was really looking forward to it. I'm a huge fan of Donald Glover / Childish Gambino. I thought the casting was perfect. I really liked the director. Jon Favreau's done some great stuff. You don't know some of the stuff he's done. He did the Jungle Book remake, and he also directed Elf. Everyone loves Elf. So he's done a lot of different things in his career. I was really excited for it. The reviews had my expectations pretty low. Basically, people were like, yeah, it looks good. It's not different. And I was like, oh, because that's what I loved about the Aladdin one. It was different enough that it felt like a whole new experience. Absolutely. And so my thoughts coming out were, it's good, but not great. I felt like there was a lot they could have done on expanding certain things. And the movie is 30 minutes longer than the original, but I didn't feel like they expanded it enough. Now, we talked directly after theater, and I think after we watched it in the theaters, my biggest problem was the color. It looked like Africa. It looked like real Africa. But if you watch the original, it is very colorful. There's all these vibrant colors, especially when Simba's singing I Can't Wait to Be King. It just kind of looked dull to me. Did you have that same experience? Or maybe it was just, I loved how Aladdin incorporated all the colors. and then I was kind of disappointed the Lion King wasn't able to do the same thing.
I guess I would agree with that. But in their defense, first of all, Aladdin is people, so you can dress them up how you want, etc. They were trying to go for, like I said, as live action as they can get. And guess where it is based? In Africa. Yeah. So yeah, it looked like Africa. Lions' fur aren't these bright oranges, flamingos, etc. They don't actually look like this. They were going for more real, I think, and you were more thinking of the child in you who wants to see all the color.
Yeah, that's pretty spot on. So to me, it did that really well. So let's start this real quick. We'll talk about things we loved, and then we'll talk about things we were so-so on, and then things we disliked. So we're going to start this period. We have now opened the things. We'll go backwards. So we'll talk about things we disliked first. So what were some things you disliked about this reimagining?
All right, friends, don't at me for this, but Seth Rogen's laugh. I really love Seth Rogen. Again, don't at me. Okay. He was a good Pumbaa. He was, but his laugh was too much like Seth Rogen's laugh. It wasn't a Pumbaa laugh. I could tell exactly who was behind the screen, if you will. And the whole point of being a voice actor is you're supposed to be able to feel the character. And I just didn't feel Pumbaa as much as I would have liked to. What were your thoughts on Pumbaa?
I liked Pumbaa a lot. I thought the laugh didn't really take me out of it necessarily. I thought it fit the character kind of nicely. It felt like, based on hearing him talk, he doesn't laugh until kind of late. The character's been introduced for a while. I think if he opened to laugh, that would kind of pull you out. But since you got used to Pumbaa being Seth Rogen's voice, I thought it was fine.
I want the experience the whole time. You're getting paid how much money? I want to feel like I am watching Pumbaa the whole time. I normally love Seth Rogen's laugh, and I think I've honestly seen too many movies where he's in that I've seen that laugh from other characters, and that just caused a mix for me.
And that might just be the age demographic. Most kids would not be allowed to see any of Seth Rogen's other films. Therefore, that laugh is Pumbaa's laugh to them. So it makes sense why they put it in, but I understand why it kind of pulled you out a bit. So my next one is also kind of a complaint with like the voicing. Beyonce is wonderful, but I don't think she was wonderful as Nala. And the reason I'll say that is the way a lot of the characters, you could tell they're either recording in the same space or they were near each other or they worked together. A lot of her lines felt like they were recorded separately, and it appears that might have been the case. The chemistry wasn't there. I think her actual voice and delivery was great, but it really felt like she was talking to a microphone, and then the characters she was interacting with were also just talking to that microphone. Like, anyone who interacted with Nala, the way I heard it, did not sound great. Did you like Beyonce's performance as Nala?
I did, yeah. I would say that as far as Beyonce goes, first of all, you just offended half of America. I'm a Beyonce fan in general, and I think she has that identity of a strong, independent female. That's what they were going for Nala, and I think she honestly accomplished that. And I think the way others reacted to that really isn't her problem. I think that she played the role as a strong, independent female, and sometimes you don't have people, having that chemistry with you if you are a strong, independent female. So I actually really liked her performance. But kind of piggybacking off of that, I wasn't a huge fan of Donald Glover, and I usually am a huge fan of Donald Glover. I love his voice. I love his comedy. I love his acting, everything about him. All I wanted was the more lion voice. I feel like he didn't incorporate that killer instinct, that killer voice, that like king of the jungle persona. Every time he sang, his voice was almost higher than Beyonce's, and I was like, yo, you're supposed to be this lion, and I just didn't get that from him. And I really wanted someone more similar to James Earl Jones, where he was that deep, soothing almost voice. So that's kind of what I was going for. I know you were a huge fan of him, though, so go ahead and defend him.
So I'm not necessarily going to straight out defend him. I was fine with it, mainly because, one, this is technically a teenage lion. Two, he was not raised by lions, so that ferocity and some of the stuff you mentioned, he was taught by a meerkat and a warthog how to be a lion. So it's a little different. Also, in anyone's defense, having to follow James Earl Jones as like a voice sort of thing, you're gonna lose that battle.
I mean, yeah, I agree with you there. That is true. I definitely can see how that is a little biased. I do understand that he's a teenage lion and that he was that, but you know what? Timon and Pumbaa could have been fierce. We don't know. We didn't grow up with them.
He was also raised to be a vegetarian. There's a lot of things you can really dissect on how Simba was raised.
All right. Go on to your next point.
I really thought that, to defend also her point, Kelsey's point as well, I thought he was good and not great. He didn't add much. He basically did the same exact thing as the other one. And I've always, and a lot of people don't, Simba, teenage/adult Simba, is not a great character. And he's not in this either. He is a very deep young cub. And then as he grows, he kind of loses a lot of himself. And you can use all the stuff I mentioned before to defend that. But yeah, it's good, not great. Can You Feel the Love Tonight? And I feel like Kelsey's going to bring up this point later. But Can You Feel the Love Tonight was great, but she had a problem with what time of day it was set in. I'll let her get to that point later. But I thought that was perfect. That makes my ears happy. That sounds beautiful. Most of the songs I don't have a problem with. We'll get to those later. But this is my probably last point I didn't really like. And for me, it's the animation is great, but it kind of pulls you out of the emotional points because they are real lions. And so they emote like real lions. But if you're comparing to the original where they emote more like humans, it makes certain parts of the film more emotional. Now, I'm not saying this film lacks emotional points. It actually hits them, but I think for different reasons than the original did for me. And I'll talk about that a little later in things I liked. But yeah, did you feel that way with kind of the animation and the emotional beats of this film?
Wow, I actually agree with you. There is a first for everything. No, I do agree. And I think I don't work in animation, so I don't know how realistic this could have been. We'll use trying to make lions realistic, but I think that they could have made them more expressive, and that was a problem I also had with the movie. Was it too much effort to add a little expression to make her a little sad his dad died? I mean, come on.
Yeah. Spoilers for The Lion King.
Yeah, I mean, y'all know this plot line. I'm not going to apologize for that. Another problem I had was the female lions didn't start a revolt. Okay. So they didn't know Simba was coming. And I feel like they were just going to accept that Scar was just going to take over. And that was that. And considering Disney is trying to move in this direction where they have strong females, I mean, yeah, they're lions, but they can be strong females. So I'm a little upset that there wasn't action taken before Simba got there. It kind of seemed like a male savior thing. I understand that's how lion packs can work. But they also don't talk. So, there's just some things that we could have ignored about that one.
Yeah, I think you're right. Are there any other bad things you want to mention, or do you just want to go into the so-so thing?
Well, since you brought it up, I would like to address the Can You Feel the Love Tonight? It was a great song. I loved the song. I like listening to it now. What I didn't like was that it wasn't at night. So why wouldn't you change the words? It doesn't take that much effort to change one word of the song. So that was my only problem with it. I felt like that they could have put in just a little more effort and made it more accurate. That is all I have for things I did not like. So we can go into the so-so.
Great. And I don't think I have a ton for the so-so. It's kind of, for me, it's a highs and a lows movie. The so-so things is some of the characters, I think, get slightly worse, but they have good moments, like Rafiki. I think he's okay. Not great. Like, he's a little different, and I think in not a great way. And then Zaza, he's good, but I really did not like how that character looked live action. It bugged me the entire time. I didn't like how he looked when he was talking. That character just bugged me. And then the hyenas were good, but they didn't get a lot of play. Even in Be Prepared, which I would also throw in a so-so, is they change it. It's more of a speech rather than a song. The hyenas just don't get a lot of play, and you don't get the sense that they're this powerhouse that they turn into in the movie. It's kind of like they're the same throughout, which was kind of disappointing in my opinion. What were some so-so things for you, Kelsey?
I mean, I would agree with yours. I really liked who they chose to play the hyenas, but as far as the roles that the hyenas actually play, I thought they chose really good voice actors for them. I was pleasantly surprised with that. I guess some so-so things are just the basic things. The color, again, it didn't bother me as much as you, so I would say that was so-so, where it was kind of like, didn't catch my eye, but I felt like I was in Africa.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good point. All right, do you want to head to good things or anything else you want to bring up right now?
Let's go ahead and head to the good things. I'm ready.
All right, so this is the happy time. We're going to talk about the things we liked, and then we'll get to our official scores afterwards. This one might be a little long, but we're already 30 minutes into it, so you're in it to win it at this point. So we're talking about the things we loved or really liked in this remake, and I'm just going to say James Earl Jones should do voices for everything. Somehow, maybe because he's a little older, but his voice is so freaking good in this. I loved every second of it. And how I mentioned, like, I felt like the faces could have emoted more, made the emotional beats better. His voice and him and Simba's conversation, the last, like, one we see on screen before Mufasa dies, that's what made that whole scene emotional, because of the way they talked and just how his voice resonates. So freaking good. I loved every second of it. I'll let Kelsey talk about something she loved.
I would agree with you on that one, and it's funny because I think you have a very similar voice. So you are so in love with this guy's voice, and I'm like, that's why I'm attracted to you. But okay. Another thing I really loved was just the story. I know everyone's mad that there wasn't more twists, and I like twists just as much as the rest. I really love the original story. It gets my heart every time. It could just be from memories. You know, I grew up watching this movie, but I definitely like it. I thought Scar was an amazing villain, and I will let you expand on that because you are very passionate about that.
Yeah, and now this is not to say that this version's Scar is better than the other one. They're different, and I like that. So this version of Scar, I think, is more of like your action or drama villain. He's very action focused, his voice is very strong, and he's very serious all the time. You can't really read him super well, but you know that he's usually not up to good. I think with the animated version is he's more Shakespearean. He likes to make everything a production. You can see that with his version of Be Prepared. It's very theatrical. He's a little more whimsy with Simba. He's the fun uncle sort of thing, but not really. Like, he's almost like the uncle that you're not supposed to like because he didn't make great life choices. That's more this animated one. This one, it's more like there's a clear line of, nah, Scar is bad. We don't really like him, but he's family, so we still invite him to family gatherings, which is the ceremony at Pride Rock, which is the first scene we see with Mufasa and Simba. Not Mufasa and Simba, Mufasa and Scar, where Mufasa asks Scar why he wasn't there. But this one, I think, was absolutely fantastic. Chiwetel Ejiofor did a great job with the voice. I thought it was really powerful and really played to his strengths as well as just the strength of how the character was written as well. What were some of your thoughts on this 2019 Scar, Kelsey?
I actually really liked Scar. I thought he was more villainous. I definitely was more afraid of him. I thought he was a stronger villain. I wasn't really kind of scared of him when I first saw it, the original, as a kid, up until the point where he actually kills Mufasa. But then this one, I would have been scared from him from the beginning. He just was a better villain. But I would like to challenge you on something if you're up for it.
Okay.
Scar was this better villain. He was seemed more dangerous, and he seemed like he wanted everything in his control. So why wouldn't he kill Simba? In the original, he didn't. It made sense. He was a wimpy kind of Scar. It would have been a good twist. And I just want to know why he would trust the hyenas to do something, because that didn't seem in his nature. It seemed like he wanted to take things into his own hands.
I think yes and no. I think Scar in both versions does not like getting his hands dirty. He wanted to be in charge, and you got the sense in this one too. The fact that he just ropes the hyenas in it all means that he does not want to do the dirty or hard work it takes to be king. And if he straight up kills Simba, blood is on his hands, and it is very difficult. He does not seem like a good liar, so him not having the blame to put on himself makes it easier for him to become king in this way.
Okay, first of all, he lied about Mufasa, so he has to be a decent enough liar. But also, he didn't check to see if Simba was even dead. So not only did he trust the hyenas to go kill him, he didn't make sure that the hyenas actually killed him, which obviously we know they didn't. And yes, it would have been hard for the plot to continue, but that's just a plot hole.
I don't think it's a plot hole. I think you really have to look at the character of Scar. He would never... Basically, it's shown he has not killed anyone. So, in his whole time of being a bad apple, he has not killed anyone. Therefore, him killing would be out of character, and therefore I don't think it's a plot hole. I do think Scar could have easily killed him, especially because he's a small cub, but based on the history of this character that the movie leads us to believe, he's not a killer. Him killing would be out of character.
I mean, he put his paws on Mufasa, so the killer thing can be argued, but I guess we'll just agree to disagree on that one. I would like to bring up my favorite character in the whole movie. Listen, if you only go to this movie just to see Timon, it will be worth your money, because I absolutely adored Timon in this. It was perfect for the character. Billy Eichner crushed it. He deserves all of the awards for this performance. His singing was amazing, and he played well with Seth Rogen. You thought they were best friends in real life, honestly. And if you watch videos, you can see that they're actually across the room, and you would have think they were in someone's mom's basement together just hanging out. It was amazing. He did a great job. And if you argue with me about this, we'll break up. So go ahead.
No, it's great. Big shoes to fill with Nathan Lane, originally being Timon. If anyone wants to laugh, on Stephen Colbert about a year ago, Nathan Lane was on his show, and he said, I have a statement about Billy Eichner as Timon. And it is hilarious because it does not go the way you would think, and I think everyone should watch it. Timon was great. Yeah, Timon and Pumbaa are probably the best parts of this movie. They do a little twist with their thing. They sing Be Our Guest, which is absolutely hilarious. Really fun characters the entire time. Yeah, no complaints about Timon. I love Pumbaa 100%, even the laugh, even though Kelsey, is hating on his laugh. A laugh is a laugh.
Do you have anything else positive you would like to say? I do have something to say about the generational thing and just money with Disney in general, but I want to make sure that you got all of your loves out there.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think it's worth paying money to see, but if you were looking for this movie to add something beyond the original, you will be sorely disappointed.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it was... I thought it was definitely worth your money. Again, even if you just see it for Timon, but I wouldn't necessarily say, oh, it's so much better than the original. And as you heard earlier, it wasn't in my top 3. I would watch it again, not my top 3. I do think Disney was very smart, just with all of these remakes in general. Disney has never been necessarily dumb with money, but
if you look at their entire history, that would not be the case. But anyways.
Again, Disney class nerd. So I think they're doing a great thing of trying to attract the new generation of kids and recreating the same love our generation had with all of these Disney movies. We grew up watching them, so they're still getting our money because every time a new one comes out, we're like, hey, I loved this as a kid. I want to go see it. And they're hoping to recreate that with kids and create that same love, that same money, getting their parents to take them to Disneyland to see these characters, things like that. And I just think that was really smart of them. So even if this movie failed, it would be a success in and of its own.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Wow. Look at that, guys. The nerd has officially stepped down. No, I do think I went to business school, and business-wise, this was very intelligent.
Yeah.
This was a good move on their part. And I think, again, worth seeing just for Timon. They could even remake a Lion King 1.5 where it's just Timon and Pumbaa, because I think kids would love it, and I think they could keep Seth Rogen and Billy Eichner as the same parts.
Yeah, no, I think you're right about that. Very smart money-wise. It is making a lot of money. So I think we mentioned earlier, I'm going to talk to our stats department to see if we can get correct numbers for this. But the original in the lifetime of its worldwide gross was $766 million. We're a little over a week into it. The Lion King so far has made $751 million worldwide. So remaking stuff is powerful, and Kelsey even mentioned it's really smart for the timing. I think it's even smarter when you look at they've really started pouring these remakes out, and I think it's really smart when you consider they kind of warmed us up with these not so well known movies or not as loved. Then they got into Beauty and Beast, Aladdin, Lion King, and those have this Lion King will make over $1 billion. Aladdin has made over $1 billion. Beauty and the Beast made over $1 billion. Just really smart timing and almost warming us up and getting our palates ready for these live action remakes.
I get the warming us up, but I also think that it was kind of a tester. Disney wanted to test and see, hey, I don't want to remake a huge one and mess up what we've already made off the original and continue making off of the original. So I just kind of want to make sure that this isn't going to mess up our whole business plan. And I think that was also smart. But maybe it was warming up. I don't know. I don't work for Disney. I just know they're a powerhouse, and this was very intelligent.
Yeah, I would love to hear other people's thoughts about this too. So if you want to follow us on social medias at Notes Nate's on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, you can let us know what you thought about this remake. So it's time for the scoring time. If everyone is prepared for this, we're going to give our official scoring because we're cool and different and fun. We're going to do it out of 7 instead of 10. And so we're going to rate this one blank lions out of 7 lions. So what would you give this movie, blank lions out of 7 lions?
I would give it 5 lions. If we were doing it out of 10 like a normal person, I would rate it a 7, but I can't do that because I would be 100%. So I would give it 5 whole lions.
That's very good. That's a pretty good score. I actually thought I would rate a little higher, but I am under you. I am 4.5 lions out of 7 lions. So I cut a lion in half.
Did you do that just to be lower than me?
No, I had that in my mind from the beginning of this. Now, I did come up with the whole 7 score during this podcast, so I didn't really, but 4.5 was kind of my score the whole time.
And this is why we're together and watch movies together, because our scores, I did not think we're going to be that close, but that's good to know.
Yeah. So overall, great movie. Thank you guys so much for listening to us talk about Lion King 2019. We probably didn't get all our thoughts out there, but we sure try to get most of them out there. If you like this, be sure to let us know. We'd like to be doing more of these. We might be doing another one soon. I think we're watching Once Upon a Time in Hollywood soon. And so if we have differing opinions or really passionate opinions, you'll probably hear them on a podcast. You've been listening to Nate's Notes Movie Reviews. We've been talking about The Lion King. I've been Nate, and with me for this episode was Kelsey. Kelsey, how was your first podcast experience?
Honestly, it was great. I am glad it was with you, someone I'm comfortable with. I think it would have been really weird just trying to do this off the bat with someone else, but we have really good chemistry, so it worked.
I believe it worked as well. If you want to follow us, I mentioned earlier, just look up Notes Nate's on social media. If you want to subscribe to us on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, Google Play Music, we're on all those platforms. We usually post 2 shows a week. These movie reviews will pop out periodically, randomly, but we have a Tuesday show and a Thursday show. Our most recent episodes on Tuesday, Last Tuesday, Griffin and we talked about our top 3 TV shows of all time. It's really fun. If you follow us on Facebook, you can vote in who likes the better TV shows. Yes, I do like the better TV shows. Then on Thursday, we had a very special guest, James Ladanye, and we talked all about golf with him. It was really fun talking to him, so you can check that one out as well. And we have a really fun Photoshop picture of Griffin, James, and I on our Facebook, if you want to check that out as well.
That's my favorite picture.
It's really not well done, but it's fun. Anyways, and there's even a reference to the episode. Photoshop James's head on Phil Mickelson. He talks about Phil Mickelson. So you can listen to all that. Anywhere you get your podcast, just look up Nate's Notes. We'll be there waiting for you. Thanks again.